Hello, welcome in everyone. Thank you for joining us today. We have Aaron and Brian from the Acelab team who will be leading the presentation today. And we have myself, Kayla, and Elisa from the Acelab team. So again, thank you for joining. Before we get things started, I am going to go ahead and share my screen and quickly show everyone where you can find more information about Acelab in the Acelab page. So here we go. Okay. Alrighty. So when you first log into Acelab, you're going to see this page here. So to find Acelab, all you have to do is type in right here at the top of the search bar and make sure you're toggled to brands and click here. Now, once the page loads, you're going to see more information about shipping, location, a description, and contact information. And we'll scroll down, we have more content, we have videos, we have full list of products here you can click into to get more information. And we have some really great case studies down here at the bottom as well. So again, feel free to check this out when you get the chance. I'm going to drop a link to the Acelab page in the chat. And then a couple things to note as well. At the very bottom of your screen, you're going to see a Q&A button. We encourage you to drop any questions that you have there. We will get to, towards the end of the presentation, we will read out some of the questions and go through those. You're also going to have a poll that pops up during the webinar that I encourage you to take, as well as a post-webinar survey. And very last, we can't forget the AIA credit. We collected your AIA numbers upon registration, so you should receive your certificate with that. If you're worried that you did not give us your AIA number, I'm going to drop a form in the chat as well. You can fill that out to ensure that you get credit. I believe that's everything, so I'll go ahead and pass it back to Aaron.
Great, thanks so much, Kayla. Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
Okay, great. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us today for AD 405, Healthy Building Materials. My name is Erin Spadavecchia. I'm the Manager of Sustainable Building Solutions here for ASSA ABLOY. I'm joined by Brian McFeely as well, our Regional Architectural Director. So just a bit of housekeeping. Today's presentation is AIA approved, as well as IDEC approved, as well as GDCI approved. So you get to doing lots of credit dipping here. So good presentation to join. And also at the end, if you'd like a copy of this presentation, feel free to reach out to Brian or myself or put your email in the chat and we can share that with you as well. So just a little bit about ASSA ABLOY before we get started. This is the ASSA ABLOY team, not a large team, but a team of two. Amy Musante, our Director of Sustainability, as well as me, myself. We have a lot of online resources here at the website shown, whether transparency documents or information about ASSA ABLOY on the corporate level as well, and our sustainability program all in. So to get into the AIA portion, the course description today is telling us that the green building market is rapidly shifting. It seems daily. It's really hard to keep up with. Material transparency is identifying the health risks in building materials, as well as helping us provide healthier alternatives. Today, we're going to talk about LEED, Living Building Challenge, and the Well Building Standard. We will dip into a little bit about design for freedom as well, regarding responsible supply chains. And at the end of this course, we'll give you a 5-step implementation process to make sure we achieve these standards, we minimize risk, and then, of course, promote healthy building materials. So learning objectives, we're going to recognize how LEED, Living Building Challenge, and WELL evaluate healthy building materials, and contribute to certification programs. We're going to have knowledge about transparency documentation as well as tools, whether it be HPDs, declares, or the red list, and then learn how to implement this 5-step process to be able to review material resources in your everyday work. So let's kick it off with the green building standards and healthy building materials. And Brian, if you could just keep an eye on the chat to interrupt me if we have any questions or any audio issues. But to get started, what are some of the green building standards? 3 of the most popular regarding material health are LEED, Living Building Challenge, and the Well Building Challenge. So LEED is, if you want to think about it this way, green for all, so very accessible, while also being able to recognize specific impacts that our projects need to consider. The Living Building Challenge is more elite and aspirational. If anyone has ever worked on a Living Building Challenge project, you can definitely agree with me that it is a challenge. It's not easy to do, and it's inspirational, almost the next step for green building leaders. And then, of course, is IWBI's Well Building Standard. We're really focusing on the human element of buildings and taking that in consideration, as well as return on investment of materials used and the benefits to its occupants. What's been nice in 2023, LEED, USGBC and IWBI got together and were able to find a pathway, a joint pathway to accredit both LEED and WELL at the same time. And why they did this is there was a lot of crossovers between credits and various certification metrics. So this is a really nice way for folks that want to get both green building certifications on their projects and streamline the paperwork and make it a lot easier. So first, let's jump into LEED. So what is LEED? Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design. Originally launched in 1993 by USGBC. It is the most widely used green building certification program. I can attest to that based on the many requests we get every day. I'd say out of the 300 requests we had last year, 90% of them were for LEED projects. As far as how widespread LEED building programs are, there's over 111 certified LEED building projects throughout the world, and that number continues to grow daily. So what are some of the key material ingredient reporting documents for LEED? 2 of the ones you'll see a lot are health product declarations, or HPDs, which are developed by the Health Product Declaration Collaborative, promoting openness and sustainable construction, and it provides us a standardized reporting for products. Then you also have Declare, which was originally developed by ILFI, the International Living Future Institute, designed to find ways to connect with future customers. And we typically hear this reference as the nutrition label for building material products. There is a lot of crossover between these 2. They can be used interchangeably for LEED. Both can count as a disclosure in the material ingredient reporting side of things, and we'll get into the anatomy of each in the next few slides. So when we're looking at LEED credit areas, building materials typically see a lot of contributions in the material ingredient reporting side. We think of LEED as a game, right? So how many points can we get to that highest level? So when we think about material ingredient reporting, we want to have 20 different permanently installed products from 5 different manufacturers at least 1,000 parts per million. When we think about 5 different manufacturers, that doesn't necessarily mean that the parent company has to be different. So you can have one company that owns 5 different brands, and that can still count. So that's an advantageous thing to keep in your back pocket. Some of the disclosures you'll see, obviously the ones that you'll recognize the most, health product declarations, also cradle to cradle, which we see a lot, which emphasizes improvement on products, and then as well as declare labels. But there's many different ways for manufacturers to show their material ingredients for folks considering them for LEED building projects. So in the industry now, we are to the point where many manufacturers have disclosures, right? So that's kind of the baseline where we are at 2025. We all know that we need to be transparent and provide information so people can make responsible decisions. But where we need to go and where we see there'll be a lot of improvement in LEED v5 is really giving more points and credits to manufacturers that have material ingredient optimizations. So what that means is for at least 25% of the cost of the total value of permanently installed products will have this optimization. So that means there's a way to show that the manufacturer has improved its product regarding material ingredients. So when we think of that, we think more of manufacturers innovating their products and making that a priority. When we're thinking about LEED and showing levels of emitting materials, so when we think about that, we want to think of the key acronym VOCs, or volatile organic compounds. So depending on which material you are evaluating, as you'll see there on the right, whether it be paint, flooring, or obviously hollow metal, you can look at what the threshold is for safe emissions, and then look at the disclosures that are accepted for these different products. So you'll see here on the left, a certificate of compliance for Green Guard and Green Guard Gold for a frame. This is basically saying that this product complies with the California Department of Health requirements for VOC emissions. And this is another tool you can use to make sure we're keeping occupants' health in mind. Everyone loves that new car smell or loves getting new furniture, but that smell is not a good thing. It means chemicals are off-gassing off the surface of that material and possibly entering our bodies. So we want to make sure we have low VOC products in our projects. Moving on to the Living Building Challenge, which launched in 2006 and powered by ILFI, which is now called, instead of ILFI, they're now rebranded as Living Future. It is one of the most comprehensive building certification programs for sustainability in the world. It's very difficult. That's why you see the numbers drop here versus LEED. LEED was 111,000 certified projects versus Living Building Challenge is 250. That shows the difference in requirements. What's important to know about this is there is a focus on materials and also materials that are regenerative and having no impacts on human and ecosystem health. Also important with this, how this green building certification programs differs, there is a required third-party audit to verify that the project meets the requirements at the end of a 12-month occupancy cycle. So it's not just you get the certification, we really have to prove that the building is doing what we're saying it does. So what do these nutrition labels look for, aka declare? So they're answering 3 questions. Where does the product come from, where it's made of, and what happens to it at the end of its useful life? As I mentioned before, declares can be used as a pathway for material ingredient credit for LEED. And these labels are valid for 12-month period, which differs from HPDs, which are valid for 3 years. So if you look at the label here on the right, you'll see all the information mentioned. Also important, the life expectancy of the product based on its product category rule. You'll also see, which has been a nice improvement in declare labels over the past few years, is the addition of the embodied carbon number from the EPD, which is almost giving a nod to a multi-attribute label by including not only material health, but the environmental impacts And then it'll say if the embodied carbon went up, down, or stayed the same versus the last time the declare label was renewed. It'll also mention the end of life option. So when we do this product, the end of its useful life, it'll have the ingredients towards the middle where the components are almost rated via the red list, which is the worst in class chemicals. So U.S. Living Future looks at the information provided in the ingredients and tells manufacturers what level they've reached on the red list. So whether the product has no red list components in the product, whether it has been red list approved via a sort of an exception of one or less, and then whether it's declared, which is great job for being transparent, but you have a little bit of ways to go in regarding reaching red list free status. Another thing to mention here is it's always great to look for these little orange dots on the bottom right of the declare labels. That's meaning it has been third-party verified by independent source, which is great to make sure that you're working with manufacturers that value that third-party verification. That goes for HPTs too. One thing I will mention, if a HPD or declare is not third-party verified, it doesn't necessarily mean the manufacturer didn't want it to be. How we get this information is reaching out to our supply chains and working with product managers to get this information. And sometimes either they'll make us sign NDAs, or they won't respond, or they'll say, no, we're not sharing this information. So if there's not a disclosure or it's not third-party verified, this could be some of the reasons. So what is this ominous sounding living building challenge red list? So as we mentioned, it's the worst in class chemicals. So you'll see here on the right, various chemicals and listed here. This list continues to be updated, so always make sure you're working off of the correct list. So you can use this to see if any of these are in the products that you're considering using on your projects. So we want to use this to make sure we're being transparent and thoughtful about the products being used on the project and avoiding any chemicals, and then also exploring alternatives depending on what product category you are evaluating at the time. So living building challenge, why is it so challenging? Another reason it's so challenging is that you must have one declared labeled product per 100 square meters of the gross building and project area. And that has to make up over 20 distinct products from 5 manufacturers. So this is not easy to do, requires a lot of research and vetting, but I will say once you've done some of that vetting, you can use this information for projects as you go down the line so that you don't have to start over each and every time. The Well Building Standard, this was launched in 2014 and is administered by IWBI, composed of over 100 features, but you'll see emphasis on health, comfort, and knowledge of the occupants. There's more than 3,000 projects across the world, so you'll see that number is a little bit more than Living Building Challenge, but definitely less than LEED. And some of the impacts that we're going to consider are human health, well-being, air, water, nourishment, light, fitness, comfort, and mind. So when we're thinking about material, ingredient reporting, and transparency in the Well Building Standard, as I mentioned, there are some crossovers. So you'll see the requirement here, at least 50% of the interior finishes or materials to be disclosed at 1,000 parts per million, sorry. So you'll see our friendly declare labels that we've mentioned before, as well as health product declarations as well. And there's also any method that would be accepted in LEED v4, 4.1, and the material and resources credit for this. And of course, as LEED v5 will come out hopefully in the spring, we'll see where the different credits fall with that. So when we're thinking about well buildings and air features related to them, again, there's a huge emphasis on VOC reduction for all different various types of categories of products, as you'll see for Division 8, doors, frames, and gasketing, and some areas where we can have reductions in some of these impacts by avoiding certain chemicals, as we see listed here, and then using certification vetting for either cradle to cradle, green screen, or looking at the entire materials petal for Living Building Challenge. So how are we going to ensure that these healthy and responsible materials make it onto our projects? Well, we're going to employ a 5-step process. So we'll see here, we're going to first set a goal of the project. So whether we want to meet a building standard achievement, whether that be LEED, Living Building Challenge, WELL, or we can also choose a specific type of movement that we want to comply with. So I mentioned Design for Freedom. That movement looks to eradicate forced child labor and modern-day slavery in the building material supply chain. So what we can do for that is looking at the Design for Freedom toolkit and ensuring that manufacturers are filling out the manufacturer's questionnaire. So really deciding what we want to achieve and how we're going to do that, and if we have the applicable credits needed to meet that standard. If that's not really an option and we can't do a green building certification, maybe we want to have an achievement such as using an avoidance list. So we can always, without getting the plaque or the certification, use the red list that's publicly available, can be downloaded at any time, and make sure that any product that goes onto your project is red list free, or using a precautionary list. So there's many different ways to tackle healthy and responsible building materials without getting the certification. Or we can look at health outcomes, so avoiding any products that have any carcinogens contained in them, obviously. One example would be healthcare. We want to pick products that are healthy and not contributing to any existing problems already. Goals continued, promoting transparency in general or as a specific certification. So whether that means using an HPD or declare, cradle to cradle, only using products that have committed to using transparency and putting that out publicly. Ideally, having third-party verified claims. We want to make sure all the stakeholders in the project agree on this metric so it can be successful. So that includes ownership as well. If they're not on board in the beginning, it's going to be very hard to get the green light for additional research that this might take. We also want to pick goals and metrics that work for your team and the project team. And then most importantly, in my opinion, making sure all stakeholders are involved very early. So that means the general contractor, the design team, the client, and then one stakeholder that's usually never on that list is the manufacturer. So making sure manufacturers are included in this project early on, specifically for reasons of transparency documents. If for some reason they don't have a transparency document that you're looking for, and there's enough time, they may be able to generate that documentation that you need or provide you enough information to be able to make a responsible choice. Step 2, establish a baseline for healthier materials. So we would always love to have every product type on a project have responsible materials, but if you're very early on in this journey, you might not be able to do so. It takes some extra energy, extra effort. So what I recommend is starting with one generic product type and then building off of that on the next project, depending on your bandwidth, how many people you have on your team. So we're going to identify those product types that we want to tackle and then see if there's any alternates or healthier products in that specific category. We also want to identify what health hazards are typical in that material, and then review transparency documents listed on major databases. So you can use third-party databases such as Mindful Materials, the HP repository, or the Declare database, or you can go on to the manufacturer's websites, whatever your preference, whatever your familiarity is with that. So then step 3 is looking for transparency. One good place mentioned was the Mindful Materials Forum. What's nice about this, the website, is it divides impacts in 5 buckets called the Common Materials Framework, which are these 5 circles here: ecosystem health, social health and equity, circular economy, climate health, and human health. So you can choose to tackle all 5 buckets in your project, or really focus on specific ones depending on the goals and bandwidth of your design team. Typically, when we're looking at these websites, we're looking at certifications and standards for particular products. We want to make sure that the design team stays engaged through the entire project. Specifically, where we see issues here is reviewing submittals. So sometimes products will be submitted in certain impact areas or that aren't apples to apples. So we want to make sure whatever your project goal is, that it actually makes its way onto the project, making sure we're very diligent throughout the process, all the way to the end. Creating a list of products that are not meeting the goals, and then potential alternatives. So very important to use the products that you see meet your goal, but then reaching out to those manufacturers and say, hey, we'd love to use you, but you got to do better. Manufacturers always like to hear that feedback because it provides a business case to help move forward with innovation and that voice of customer. So reviewing this list at each phase allows you to highlight alternatives or where work needs to be done. But also what's nice about getting that library of your internal products is that you can help pass that on to the next project team. So we're not continuously starting over on each project. You've already vetted that product. Let's move on to the next product type. Step 4, assess and compare the products the project team has selected against the goal set at the beginning of the project. So we really want to say, this is our goal. Did we meet the goal? If not, why didn't we? And that's fine too, but we got to make sure that we have continuous progress, which is not an easy thing. We want to make sure we can understand where we succeeded and where some of the pitfalls were. If we're using an avoidance list, we want to make sure we review it against the HPDs, declares, or even sometimes if a manufacturer does not have a declare or a HPD, ask them for their bill of materials or their BOM, and they may be willing to share that with you as well. Specifically with a lot of the smaller manufacturers, if it's a smaller manufacturer, they might not have the staff or the ability to pay annual renewals on these certifications. So it's not that they don't want to be transparent. It might be the fact that they can't afford to be transparent. So not closing yourself off to manufacturers that don't have these disclosures, simply asking what they're able to share if not. And then step 5, the last step, informing your team of how well you achieved your health goal through a final report. I think this is a really important step. A lot of the times we don't take the time to debrief. We're glad the project is over, it went well, and then we move on. So it's really good to share those wins, and then also share where, maybe we haven't been successful and why that happened. Also updating your in-house library to highlight the products that you like and that you've used with manufacturers that have this documentation or that have been willing to work with you towards providing transparency information. Also creating a list of certifications that you've used or reports or websites that have helped you through that project. So again, not reinventing the wheel, passing that knowledge on to the next project team. And then taking time to prepare for future projects. And then lastly, celebrating, which is a great last step. It's important to make sure that those project wins are announced and that you put that out there, whether it be case studies on your website or on LinkedIn, just really showing people that you're doing the hard work and maybe inspiring others to do so as well. So what are some additional resources we can employ to make this happen? We mentioned Mindful Materials before. This is an aggregator of sustainable information, and it's really nice because you can streamline it and get the data by searching by impact or CSI division or product type. So there's a really robust capability, and this can be used by stakeholders across the building industry. Also for material sourcing issues as well, but this website right here, the portal and the product search, you can use that. And if you need more information on the common materials framework, if that's not something that you've heard of, with the 5 impact areas, that's another place to brush up too, because we should be seeing that incorporated throughout the sustainability industry and in LEED v5 regarding impact. So very important to know what the common materials framework is in 2025. Also can look for those HPDs in the public repository. The website is at the bottom if you need that. And again, you can search by manufacturer, product name, CSI division, or HPD version. What's nice about this, it does allow, this website does allow manufacturers to build their own HPDs there. So if it's a smaller manufacturer, they might be able to do that there. So really evaluating where you're going to get your information from, if it's from the manufacturer, if it's from a third-party website, or a mix of both. But it's definitely good to know what your options are. The Declare Label database, as you'll see there on the right, that's where you'll find all of your Declare labels that you need with those nice orange third-party verified logos. Again, you can search by any way you need, and this information definitely populates directly into the Mindful Materials portal as well. So a lot of these third-party websites are feeding into Mindful Materials. So if you want to just look there, that information should be there as well. And you'll have access to the Declare Labels, this website, and also the red list as well. And important to make sure you're keeping up with the new additions to the red list as it changes. Another place to look at is talks not exchanged by 3E. So this is if you're looking for information on materials, but also transparency into building material supply chain. So you can look here, ask manufacturers for product passports. We see a lot of product passport movement going on in Europe. So whatever happens over there typically comes over here. So I think we'll be seeing a lot more product passports being made in the next decade, but that information is there. And again, robust search tools as well at the 3 exchange here. And most importantly, collaborate with product manufacturers. Manufacturers want to know where they're doing well, where they're not doing well, what you need. There's no way for us to know unless we hear from you. So working with manufacturers that are willing to put in that work and get involved early. So congratulations, you are now a materials expert. So you're familiar with LEED, Living Building Challenge, the Well Building Standard, and healthy materials and their certifications. You have knowledge of documents and tools such as HPDs, declares, and the red list. You have an implementation process to incorporate these healthy materials onto your projects, and knowledge of healthy material resources for future design work. So congratulations, you just got another AIA credit. This concludes the AIA-approved presentation. I'm just going to go through a few more slides for those of you who are interested in hearing a little bit more about ASA ABLOY, and then we'll take some questions if there are any. So Acelab, this is our strategy house. As you'll see here, sustainability is at the foundation on which everything else is built upon. So we take sustainability very serious here at Acelab. We integrate sustainability in everything that we do through our science-based targets. We hope to be net zero by no later than 2030. And every year we publish our sustainability report to show our progress on that as well. We do have 5-year sustainability programs to make sure that we're having continuous improvement over the last 5 years and monitoring that as well. Acelab was named on the Times Magazine Top 500 Most Sustainable Companies. We were number 177, which is great, but we weren't number 1, so we have a long way to go. So continuing to work on that. Some folks are unfamiliar what it means to be sustainable in Division 8 and 28. So when you think about our division, you want to think of products such as doors and frames, accessories, locking solutions, access control to gain or restrict entry, door closers, power supplies, and glass solutions. We see a lot of glass solutions used in the wall building standard for daylighting and access to views. And some of the many contributions you'll see through these products is thermal resistance to the exterior building envelope, low and regenerative access control solutions. If you look at the picture, the top left, that operator is a regenerative product. As the door opens and closes, it generates its own power just through the use of daily traffic flow. Door openings designed and tested for acoustic control, and then products with low levels of chemical off-gassing. So those low VOC products that have Green Guard or Green Guard Gold certifications. So really thinking about contributing to reductions in cost and footprint, as well as healthy and transparent solutions. Acelab is the global leader in access solutions. We have operations in 70 countries, 51,000 employees, and sales of $13.3 billion. It seems like we have a new acquisition every week, sometimes every day. So we're continuing to build on that product portfolio to make sure we can deliver you any access solution that you might need, and also keeping sustainability in mind. So you want to make sure that we are sustainable from curb to core as you enter the building, and then through every step as you go through the building. Oops, we skipped ahead. So as you'll see here, anything from door closers, glass door hardware, all of these have contributions, whether it be recycled content, transparency documents, a product end of life recycling program. There's a way to have sustainable solutions in every CSI division, making sure you reach out to those manufacturers to help you along that journey. Some of the brands of Acelab that you're maybe familiar with. On the door side, it's typically Seco, Curry's, Concept Frames, Fleming, Pioneer. On the lock side, we have Sargent, Corbin, Russwin, and Accentra, which was previously Yale, and the list goes on and on regarding accessories, automated door solutions. And no matter what market you're in, we'll be able to help you out, whether it be on the government side, K through 12, residential. There's typically a solution that we can provide that is sustainable. We also have a program called Opening Studios, where we can have integrated project delivery that's compatible with Revit as well as ArchiCAD. We can do reviews and tracking, and then just make the assigning of hardware and information flow much easier. So if you're interested in that, please reach out to Brian. He'll put his information in the chat. We also have a website called The Good Design Studio, which has all the aesthetically pleasing hardware options for you. There's also a ideator there where you can put your products together and see how they look aesthetically by changing the finishes. So that's something to explore as well. As we mentioned, we have the Opening Studios, but there's various services associated with that. Anything from punch outs, fire door inspections, smart tags, which actually come in really helpful on sustainable projects because we have a lot of folks reaching out regarding demos of buildings and using product take-back programs. So it's much easier when there's sufficient product information there. And I believe that is it. So I'll stop sharing my screen and then take any questions that we might have.
Thank you so much, Erin. That was great. We do have a couple questions in the chat. I will go through those. If you guys have any other questions, now's the time. So go ahead and drop it in that Q&A section. Our first question is, can you comment on the U.S. exit from the Paris Agreement and the effect on building owners' perceived value of healthier building materials and the environments, and the myriad of related questions?
Yes, that's obviously a very timely question. Regardless of what happens in the U.S. government, there are, owners that will prioritize sustainability and manufacturers that will prioritize sustainability regardless. Assa Abloy is a Swedish-owned company, so regardless of what's going on here, there's something that we believe in and that we will still keep doing no matter what. The return on investment for sustainable buildings has been proven time and time again. So if people don't value sustainability, they for sure value money and returning on their investment. So you can't sell sustainability, you can surely sell return on investment and how that is strategic to any stakeholder involved in a project. So great question.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I do have a few folks asking if you'd be willing to share the PowerPoint presentation. Is that something you can do? Okay.
Yep, I can put it in PDF format and then send it out to any participants that would like it. So.
Perfect. Yeah, that'll be great. And anybody looking for the recording, that'll be on the Acelab website and within a couple of days. All right. I think that's actually all the questions that we have right now. I think if there's nothing else, I think we can go ahead and call it.
Okay, that's great. Thank you so much for having us, for dialing in. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you everyone for joining.
Thanks,
everyone.
Gail. Appreciate it. Good job, Erin.
Bye.
Bye.